Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Gillian Pereira on the line, and she is lead researcher at the Business Pickle. Gillian, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, Gillian. So excited to learn more about the Business Pickle and really what the good work that you're doing for your clients today. But before we get into that, I'd like to start this episode the way that we start them all with our Mission Matters Minute. So, Gillian, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Gillian, what mission matters to you?
Thanks, Adam. Our mission over at the Business Pickle is really to help leaders that are ready to do good. The reason we started the Business Pickle is we really believe that business can be a powerful force for good in the world, but I'm sure as many of your listeners will know, putting that into action can be really complicated and it can be hard for people to know where to start. And so we want to help those people that are engaged around social, environmental impact, making a difference in their business, to help them on their way and equip them with what they need to keep moving forward.
Fantastic. Well, great to have you on the show. And I guess I'd like to go a little bit further back in time here, Jillian. Like, what put you on this path and on this mission to do what you're doing at the Business Pickle?
Yeah, great question. So prior to the Business Pickle, I was actually working in the non-profit sector here in Australia for a major food rescue organisation. And my role covered corporate partnerships and research roles at different points in time. And what it did was it really gave me a chance to work with major companies that were really working hard to make a positive impact through their businesses. And I got to see what that looked like on the ground. The genesis of the Business Pickle was actually in a casual conversation with co-founder Simon and a few of our friends. And essentially we were discussing some examples we'd seen of businesses that had dramatically changed their direction and changed the way that they did things just purely in order to serve their goals around making a bigger social impact in the world. And it really got us thinking, how can we unlock that for more businesses and help them, learn what they need to know and find the tools and strategies to do that for themselves.
What are the types of clients that you tend to find get the most value out of working with you and your team? So is this only for like large enterprise level companies? Is it for middle market or small businesses? Like, give us a flavor for that.
Yeah, so generally we tend to think about medium-sized businesses as kind of the ones that are really in our wheelhouse, but the research that we pull together can apply to businesses of all different shapes and sizes. What we find is the real key element for us bringing value to businesses is that they already have a motivation to actually improve their social environmental impact in whatever ways are relevant for their business and for their industry. We don't really do the job of trying to convince people or pull people along to say this matters, that business is doing good in the world. And we find that when businesses are already there, whether they're just at the beginning of thinking about their sustainability strategies or they've got a plan in place, that's the real time that we can make the biggest change together.
And so I want to, my next question, I don't want to seem loaded, and I know there's a lot that goes into this, and there's only so much we can cover in a 20-minute podcast episode, right? But a lot of people are out there that want to do good, and I find like there's this gap sometimes between the intention of doing good and it actually, like, the impact actually happening. So from your vantage point and perspective, just because having worked with businesses in this space, what do you see that gap between intention to do good and impact? Like, where do you see that gap happening?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think to frame this question, there are a really broad range of definitions and ideas from businesses and leaders on what, say, doing business for good or making an impact actually means. So for some, it can be simply providing jobs, essential products and services. And, for others, it can mean becoming maybe carbon neutral or donating some of their revenue to a cause. And that can carry all the way through to full supply chain assessments of ethics, environmental, sustainable practices. And so there's a really broad sweep of what businesses are thinking about when they think about doing good in the world. But at the Business Pickle, we recently did a survey of leaders to try and understand that question of the intention to do good through business and what's actually happening. And what we found in that research was that while most, 70%, agree that businesses do have a responsibility to improve their impact in the world, we found that only 2 in 5 feel personally responsible to make an impact through business. So there's a bit of a gap there between how leaders feel personally they have the agency or the impact that they can have versus what their wider business should be doing. And over half of the respondents in our survey also identified that competing business priorities was the biggest challenge or barrier to improving social and environmental impact in their organisation. As I'm sure your listeners know, just the day-to-day realities of running a business, managing cash flow, managing staff, managing revenue, managing different shareholders or stakeholders' expectations, it's already so complicated just to keep a business in a good space. And so for many, this can feel like quite a stretch to start implementing these changes. So I think there's a big opportunity there, but there's also a big gap there as it stands at the moment, as we saw in our research.
And I wanna jump around here a little bit. So in going through your material, I noticed that you also have a podcast, and I love promoting other podcasters, and I love getting my audience to go check it out. And if it matches what they're looking for and what they're interested in, then definitely I want them to hit that subscribe button. So your podcast is, make sure I'm getting this right, as appropriately named, the Business Pickle, which is highly catchy in the podcast world or
That's
otherwise.
Right.
What was the inspiration of going the podcast route? Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah. So essentially this whole idea for the Business Pickle began as a podcast, an idea for a podcast. And over time we thought we want to be able to reach leaders and businesses wherever they're at. So maybe it's that they can just absorb a bite-sized fact or finding on a topic that's relevant to them. Maybe they want to go really in-depth and download our 50-odd page research report and get into the details. But podcast is just such a powerful format, as you know, Adam, to reach people at those moments in their day where maybe they're in transit or they've got some time at home just to absorb something and catch a new insight. And so we thought this is a medium that we want to be part of to really bring these findings and the research to life. The way that we make our podcast is we do interviews with a whole bunch of different business leaders and experts in the particular field of the topic. And then we splice those different findings up with our own conversation and other secondary research that we bring to the table. So we hope it's helpful for people that are listening along. And if others want to have a listen, just search the Business Pickle wherever you're listening.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, and I completely agree. And I what I like about just in general your brand overall is that we don't talk about it maybe or feature it enough, or at least it doesn't come across my desk as often, is the idea of doing in-depth research and really diving deeper into issues. Which I find very interesting that you're creating, that you as a firm, you're creating original content, not just in the idea of podcasting, obviously to distribute the content, but in terms through your reports, white papers and otherwise. Can you tell, and you just mentioned one, I believe briefly, about a 50-page report. You said whether they're going to download that or how they're going to get the information. Can you tell us a little bit more just into your methodologies, or I should say the type of output that you're actually doing for businesses, whether it's reports or otherwise?
Yeah, so we try to offer a whole range of freely available resources to equip business leaders. So as you mentioned, we've got in-depth research reports that are free to download from our website. And each season of research that we do, we release new reports. So far, people can find one on corporate giving, how businesses can give to the non-profit sector and support their work. One on food waste, we're throwing away a third of our food, so what can businesses do about it? and also on packaging. We're all very aware of the issues of packaging waste and all the resources that go into all the packaging that we use. So we've done an in-depth research report on that as well. And so that's all freely available. We also have a facts and findings database people can access, the podcasts and video content as well. And then for businesses that really want to go deeper and unpack this in detail, that's really where our services come in. So being able to offer commissioned research, do a deep dive into a particular topic that's really relevant for that business, and provide research on some of the key benchmarks or frameworks that will best fit for them, and really help them map out a roadmap on how they can implement their sustainability strategies to really make an impact.
So I know obviously you're working on a lot of different issues, a lot of different reports, and a lot of different industries, but is there anything that sticks out to you, trend or otherwise, just something that you're working on that you're like, that you can comment on, by the way, that you're like, oh, this is really interesting stuff?
Yes, so I guess in addition to those topics that I've already mentioned, we did recently do that survey of leaders that we touched on earlier, and I think it really does give a good temperature check for the time and give a sense of where business leaders are thinking, what are the major issues that they're struggling with or working through. And some of the most common themes and challenges we saw through that research were climate action, packaging and waste, as well as equity and diversity. So what is on business leaders' minds? It really spans the environmental impacts and the social impacts. And we see these common trends and themes really emerging. So if people want to access that research, that's a much shorter report, so maybe a bit quicker of a read, and that's also available at the Business Pickle.
Were there any outcomes that kind of surprised you, or that were just like, oh, well, you know what, this is heading this direction. I didn't quite think it was going to happen that way?
Yeah, so one of the findings that we really found surprising in that piece of research was over half of the people responding, those business leaders responding to this survey, claimed that their business is comfortable to improve its impact, even if it reduces profitability. And that's what people are saying, and isn't it? Yeah, it's such a high figure, and this is self-reported, so potentially, in practice on the ground, potentially that percentage drops, but just to see that real appetite and interest for business leaders to say, we'll do what's necessary to make these changes in our business, even if it hits our bottom line, I think is really encouraging, because it shows that real commitment that people have to do this work.
Wow, it's awesome. Well, Gillian, I have to say it has been having you on the show today. I really enjoyed getting to know more about the Business Pickle and, of course, the Business Pickle podcast. I want my audience to definitely go check that out. Always love to support other podcasters, especially ones that are doing great work like yourself. That being said, if somebody is listening to this and they want to connect, either to learn more about the Business Pickle or also to follow your work, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. So the website is probably the easiest way to find us. So it's thebusinesspickle.com. We're also on LinkedIn, Instagram, other platforms. So feel free to just search the Business Pickle there. You should be able to find us. And you can also sign up to our newsletter via our website in order to keep in the loop and hear about the latest research and findings that we're uncovering together.
That's wonderful, and we'll be sure to put all that information in the show notes so that our audience can just click on the links and head right on over and check out the businesspickle.com. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time listening to Mission Matters or engaging with the platform, we're all about bringing on business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and having them share their mission, the reason behind their mission, the work they're doing and how they're doing it, and what we can really all learn from it so that we can all grow together. If that's the type of content that sounds interesting or fun or engaging to you, hit that subscribe button, because we have many more mission-based individuals coming up on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Gillian, again, it really has been a pleasure. Thanks again for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
It's been such a pleasure talking to you, Adam. Thanks for your time.